Welcome to the Smart Weight Loss Coaching Podcast. I'm Dr. Lisa Oldson, a board-certified weight loss medicine specialist and certified life coach. In this podcast, I'll share fresh insights and effective techniques for incorporating mindset, habit change, and proven science into your life. Are you ready to achieve sustainable weight loss, wellness, and longevity? Then let's jump in and lose weight the smart way. Welcome back. I want to tell you about something that happened a few weeks ago. I was at an Argentine tango class, standing there waiting for the music to start, and I felt rusty, to say the least. My feet knew the steps, mostly, but my body wasn't responding the way I wanted it to. I was thinking too hard about everything instead of just dancing. And that's when it hit me. I've been taking tango classes on and off for almost a decade now, 10 years. But if you added up all the actual hours I've spent practicing, it's probably not even close to what someone would accumulate in a single consistent year. I started learning tango back in 2016, and it's been one of those hobbies that I absolutely love when I'm doing it. I know I'm not the only one who finds that life has a way of getting in the way, doesn't it? When my kids were younger, I'd sign up for the first few classes of a session. Then one of them would start a new sport or activity, and I'd need to step back. Maybe I'd go all in for 3 months and then stop for a year. Find a practice partner, meet up a few times, then get too busy and have to tap out. And when COVID hit, I took 3 full years off. So here I am, nearly a decade later, and I'm still what I'd call a mediocre intermediate dancer. I show up maybe 8 or 10 times a year, just enough to avoid completely forgetting how to dance, but nowhere near enough to make real progress. And honestly, every time I walk into class, I feel a little rusty all over again. But here's what I also know. I've had moments where I committed, where I showed up once a week for 6 solid months in a row. And during those stretches, I could feel myself improving. My body remembered the moves faster. I stopped overthinking. I started relaxing into the dance. And that's the power of practice. That's why my word for 2026 is practice. Now, before we go further, I'd like to acknowledge that the end of January is an odd time to start talking about choosing a word of the year. But there's a reason I planned this topic for this week several months back. By now, a lot of New Year's resolutions have already fallen by the wayside. Research shows that most resolutions don't make it past the first few weeks, and certainly even fewer past the first few months. If you're listening to this thinking, yep, that's me. I already gave up on my resolution. I want you to know you're not alone and you're not broken. Resolutions often fail because they feel like obligations. They're framed as things we should do, rules we have to follow, or outcomes we're supposed to achieve. There's very little emotional connection between our hearts and our resolutions. They're more external pressures, not internal motivators. But what if instead of setting a resolution, you chose a single word to guide your year? A word that represents how you want to show up, what you want to prioritize, or who you want to become. This concept, choosing a word of the year, has gained traction in recent years because it offers something resolutions don't: flexibility, meaning, and a daily reminder of what truly matters to you. It's not a rigid plan, it's more like a guiding principle, a North Star. Your word becomes a filter for decision making. That's kind of cool, right? It helps you say yes to the things that align with your values and no to the things that don't. And unlike a resolution that can feel like a pass-fail situation, a word of the year is something you can work with every single day. So today, I want to talk about my word, practice and why I think it might be a powerful word for you too, especially if you're working on weight loss or building healthier habits to increase your health span. Not just your longevity, but how many years you live in good health. Here's the thing about practice that we often forget. We get good at what we practice. That sounds obvious, right? But think about it. We don't expect to speak Italian fluently without years of classes and regular practice. We don't expect to play the violin beautifully or dance the tango well without putting in the hours. And when I say hours, I mean a lot of hours. You've probably heard of Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000-hour rule. In his book Outliers, Gladwell popularized the idea that it takes about 10,000 hours of practice to achieve mastery in a complex skill. He drew this from research by psychologist Anders Ericsson, who studied expert performance in various fields like music, chess, and sports. Now, Ericsson later clarified that it's not just about logging hours, it's about deliberate practice, which is intentional, focused, and designed to improve specific aspects of performance. You can't just mindlessly repeat something 10,000 times and expect to become an expert. You have to practice with attention. You need to get feedback and then adjust. I made 2 new friends this year. One plays for the Lyric Opera, and the other is a musician with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Both of them have been performing professionally for decades. And you know what they still do? They practice constantly. I think they practice every single day. They don't show up to a performance and wing it because they think they've already made it and they're done. No, they practice as a non-negotiable part of their identity as musicians. So here's my question for you. Why do we think we should set a goal like eating 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, or exercising 5 days a week, or going to bed at 10 p.m. instead of midnight without putting in some serious practice time? And why do we expect ourselves to effortlessly adopt a new habit and make it stick without treating it like the skill-building process it actually is? We don't, or at least we shouldn't. Healthy habits are skills, and skills require practice. Now, before we talk about how to practice more effectively, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. Just kidding, it's still me, Dr. Lisa Oldson, physician and founder of Smart Weight Loss Coaching. If you've been considering the role of weight loss medications in your weight loss journey, you need a smart medical team with the experience to help. For those of you living in Illinois, I hope you'll consider working with us. We've just brought on a fantastic physician assistant with over 20 years of experience, and she's taking new clients. Reach out to us at team@smartweightlosscoaching.com to make an appointment or to learn more. And we're back. Let's talk about what deliberate practice actually looks like when it comes to weight loss and health habits. Deliberate practice, according to Ericsson's research, has a few key characteristics. First, it's intentional. You're not just going through the motions, you're paying attention to what you're doing and why you're doing it. Second, it's focused on improvement. You're identifying specific areas where you want to get better, and you're working on those. Third, it involves feedback. You're noticing what's working and what's not. You're asking others for feedback, if that's appropriate, and you're adjusting accordingly. And fourth, it requires repetition. You're doing it again and again, not just once or twice, but over and over. Let's apply this to something like meal planning, which is a habit many of my clients want to build. If you decide I'm going to meal plan every week, but you don't actually practice the steps involved, you're going to struggle. Not because there's something wrong with you, but because meal planning is a skill. It involves deciding what to make, checking what ingredients you have on hand, making a grocery list, shopping for the groceries, and then actually prepping and cooking those meals. That's a lot of moving parts. So instead of expecting yourself to be perfect at it right away, what if you simply approached it as a practice? Week 1, maybe you just practice choosing 3 dinners for the week. Don't worry about shopping or cooking yet. You're just getting comfortable with the decision-making part. And if that feels too basic, fine, plan some meals for the next week or the week after that. During week 2, practice making a grocery list based on those 3 dinners. Week 3, practice shopping for those ingredients without getting distracted by everything else in the store. And of course, be sure you're reading your ingredient labels, watching out for sneaky hidden ultra-processed ingredients. Week 4, you practice actually cooking one of those meals on a night when you'd normally order takeout. And after that, simply repeat. That's deliberate practice. You're breaking down a complex skill into smaller pieces, focusing on one piece at a time, and building competency gradually. And here's the thing. You're going to mess up because you're a normal human. That's part of practice. We all mess up. Athletes don't get discouraged when they miss a shot in practice. That's why they call it practice. It's the safe space to try something, fail, learn, and try again. But when it comes to weight loss and health habits, we tend to be incredibly harsh with ourselves. We miss one workout and decide we're lazy. We eat something off plan and tell ourselves we have no willpower. We skip meal prep one week and think, see, I knew I wouldn't stick with this. But that's not how we talk to ourselves if we're learning to play an instrument or speak a new language. We expect those things to take time. We expect to sound bad at first. We expect to need lots of repetition before we get better. So why don't we give ourselves that same grace when we're learning to eat in a way that supports our health, or learn to manage stress without turning to food, or when we're learning to prioritize sleep? These are skills, my friends, and skills take practice. There's also something really important that happens the more we practice. We build habits. And as you know from this podcast, once you build habits, everything becomes easier. In the beginning, every new behavior requires a lot of conscious effort and decision-making. But over time, with repetition, those behaviors start to become automatic. They require less mental energy and feel more natural. Research on habit formation shows that the more consistently we repeat a behavior in a specific context, the stronger the mental association becomes. Eventually, the context itself becomes a cue for the behavior. For example, if you practice eating a protein-heavy breakfast every single morning, eventually your brain starts to associate morning with protein. You don't have to think about it as hard. It just becomes what you do. You eat a protein-forward breakfast. But that doesn't happen after 1 week or even 1 month for most people. It happens through practice, through repetition, showing up again and again, even imperfectly. And this is where we should talk about patience with yourself. One of the most important lessons from sports psychology is that mastery takes time and progress is rarely linear. Athletes understand that they're going to have good days and bad days, days where everything clicks and days when nothing feels right. But they don't quit after a bad day. They show up to practice the next day anyway. That's the mindset I want you to bring to your health habits this year. You're not going to be perfect. You're going to have weeks where practice went really well and weeks where life gets in the way. That's a normal part of the process. What matters is that you keep practicing. Because here's what I've learned from my own tango journey. When I show up consistently, even just once a week, I improve. When I take months or years off, I lose ground. Not all the way back to the beginning, but enough that it's noticeable. And dancing isn't as much fun. The same is true for healthy eating, for exercise, for stress management, and sleep. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to practice. And the beautiful thing about choosing practice as your word for the year is that it gives you something to focus on every single day. You can ask yourself, what am I practicing today? Maybe today you're practicing eating slowly and mindfully. Maybe tomorrow you're practicing going to bed 15 minutes earlier. Maybe next week you're practicing saying no to something that doesn't align with your health goals. There's no finish line with practice. There's always something to work on. And that's actually good news because it means you never have to feel like you failed. You're just practicing. This is especially important when it comes to weight loss because weight loss is not a destination. It's not something you achieve and then you're done. Maintaining a healthy weight or continuing to work toward a healthy weight requires ongoing practice and attention and skill building. And when you frame it that way, when you see it as practice rather than perfectly aiming for some non-existent finish line, it becomes so much more sustainable. So as we head into February, as January turns the page, I want to invite you to think about your own word for the year. Feel free to borrow the word practice. Or maybe you'd like something else: consistency, patience, resilience, or balance. Whatever word resonates with you, I encourage you to choose it intentionally. Write it down and put it somewhere you'll see it every day. And then ask yourself regularly, am I living in alignment with this word today? If the answer is no, that's okay. No sweat. Reset. Tomorrow you get to practice again. Now, it's time for your MBA, your next best action, which obviously involves choosing your word for 2026. And if you already set a resolution earlier this month and it's not working for you, it's okay to let that go and try this instead. And once you've chosen your word, write it down, tell someone, make it real. And then tomorrow, ask yourself, what am I practicing today? Because remember, we all get good at what we practice. Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like more support during your smart weight loss journey, check out our group coaching program at smartweightlosscoaching.com. Until next time, stay well and stay smart.